When I was 4, I had a rabbit. His name was Wolfgang, named after Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Now, I've no idea why. This rabbit wasn't musical, nor was he a prodigy in any discipline. He couldn't dance, recite poetry, juggle, or even identify the string quartets of the man he was named after. I was thinking of Wolfgang this morning because I was thinking of Jake Hudson, very much a human, who joined me in season 1 of El Camino. And now that we're on to my last few episodes on the show, it's time to don rose-colored glasses and remember our time together as being just slightly better than it actually was. Oh, can't forget this. In this episode, we ride in Halliburton. El Camino is brought to you by Yamaha, revs your heart. Importations Thibault, distributor of power sports parts and accessories. And by GP Bikes, Canada's power sports authority. Welcome to El Camino. Jake Hudson. Just look at that hair. But has he gained a few pounds? Let's compare. This is Jake today. This is Jake from season 1. Today, season 1. Today, season 1.
Space, it tries to keep us away. Just kinda hoping that you stay very close, right next to me. Trust me, I don't mind.
Young Jake and I had many a fine adventure. We went trials riding. He humiliated me. And you never humiliate the host of a show if you're just the co-host. Co-hosts are supposed to be yes men, like on late night talk shows, but not Jake. And I'm not at all ashamed to admit that I tried to have him removed from the show for insubordination. But alas, Jake came with the show, kind of like a sofa in a furnished apartment. Eventually, Jake and I made peace. He'd kick my ass riding, and to keep him off balance, I'd use multisyllabic words like mellifluous and ameliorate and Scythurism, the latter to explain the sound leaves make when they're ruffled by a gentle evening breeze. Jake and I hit some fine towns in our time, like Sudbury. We were at the Science Museum and he tried to flirt with the snake lady. Now, I don't mean snake lady, like she had the head of a human and the body of a snake. Although back when I had Wolfgang, I saw a creature just like that when the fall fair came to town. Before the internet, we'd fall for anything. Now that we have the internet, we'll fall for anything. It's called societal progress. I think she was more of a snake wrangler, this woman at the museum, that he tried to flirt with. But when you have snakes, who needs men? Even a boy man like Jake. After season 1, Jake left his gig at the show to work for his father's insurance company. Unsurprisingly, minimum wage had lost its charm, and Jake wanted to experience the spoils of life, like sofa burning parties in the woods or whooping it up with his buddies on the wakeboarding boat. Working on modestly budgeted TV shows, well, that's not going to get you a wakeboarding boat, or a boat, or a paddleboard, or a paddle. You want to get somewhere? Take the bus. Jake lives in the town of Halliburton. That's where our crew caught up to him. This is Briar. She's taken over for Jake at head office. I suspect she's not into burning sofas, but it's one of those things you just don't ask. While I dig up footage from my Halliburton trip with Jake, Briar's off to Halliburton herself to do a little off-roading. In late winter, an ice storm clobbered parts of Ontario. Mature trees were snapped like twigs. You know what I mean. But Halliburton is crisscrossed by some excellent off-road trails, trails shared between motorcycle clubs, ATV clubs, and snowmobile clubs. If you're into golf clubs, well, that's a different show. Earlier this season, we covered the Corduroy Enduro, a race held in these very parts. Many of the trails are now impassable. Nobody's getting through here. And Blair Sharpless, the man behind the cord, is out in the woods today in a different capacity, as a volunteer.
Today I'm out here, we're going to clear some single track trail for the Halliburton Motorcycle Club. They're holding a trail ride in this area later in July. And so this winter, because of the ice storm we had just in the spring, early spring, it's a lot more than normal. Every spring we have to go out and clear deadfall from the winter and stuff like that. But this year the work is like about tenfold, and there's been a lot of groups out clearing trail. And so that falls to our responsibility to get it cleared up so everybody can ride it. It's part of the trail network that the Ontario Federation of Trail Riders, they have it all mapped out. So if you want to find the trails, you just get a membership to the OFTR and go on the trail app, and it all comes up there and you can follow your GPS. So yeah, I even, because of all the ice damage this year, I went and bought myself 2 new saws. So it's been a lot of work this year, but there's a great volunteers that come out and help out. And so that's basically all I'm doing today. I'm just volunteering to help out the Halliburton Club, one of the clubs I belong to.
Briar may have jumped the gun a little, so while the lads chainsaw their way to freedom, she sidled over to the Halliburton Forest Wolf Center, an entirely indoor wolf interpretive center. Why do I stress the indoor aspect? Black flies, mosquitoes. It isn't the big critters that pose a risk in these woods. The smaller they get, the bigger the bite. Wolfpacker Morena Wigmore tells us all about it.
So Halliburton Forest Wolf Center has been in operation since 1996, so almost 30 years now, teaching folks about wolves. It's kind of an interesting facility, all indoors, one of the only all indoor activities you can do in Halliburton County. So it's a great one for rainy days, sunny days, families, all ages. Everything's inside the building. We have a series of educational exhibits. But of course, the main event is always viewing our live wolves through the one-way glass windows. Currently, at the moment, we have 5 wolves that live with us, and most often, you're pretty lucky you'll get to see them outside the observation windows, and our staff are always available on hand to answer lots of questions. You can learn about them, take photos. We've got a whole kids center where you can do some coloring, coloring your own wolf. Activity books to go with that. There's a touch and feel station for the kiddos that they can get more involved and actually feel what a wolf's fur feels like and get a little bit more engaged with the information that's here and with our local wildlife, that maybe it inspires them to conserve it and love it a little bit more.
And here I thought these were dogs dressed up as wolves, but no, they're actually real wolves. Wolves identifying as wolves, wholesome. No need to protest anything here. My only concern about the Wolf Center is that they took the cutest wolf pups and shipped them to the taxidermist. Now that's heartless. Wolves are a great symbol of the wild. You can't domesticate a wolf, nor should you try. Now, speaking of interpretive centers, wolves are ideal for this, especially like here because you can see them in the wild. Now, since we're on the topic of interpretive centers, did you know that the city of Timmins, hometown of Shania, whose bed of your boots been under, Twain, felt the wolves at their door and closed the interpretive center dedicated to Shania. It lost millions, and the modernist structure built to contain her shoes and dresses and parking tickets was leveled and the land turned into an open pit gold mine. There's a joke in here somewhere, but I just can't find it. This segment is brought to you by Yamaha. Welcome back to El Camino. Halliburton's a great place to ride. Really, it is. And I'm not just saying that because I have to say that. Although I have to say that. Once every few years, I'll work my way over this way to ride. A favorite stop is in Dorset at the Tower. Now, it's a hike to the top, but it's spectacular, especially in the fall. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start off in Halliburton. Wolf mania aside, if you're a fan of sculpture, as I am, and Let's be honest, have you ever met an off-roader who didn't have a passion for sculpture? Then before you split town, check out the Haliburton Sculpture Forest. It's outside, in the forest. After that, hit the 118 northwest from Haliburton, and when you hit Highway 35, head north. 35 is a great road, winding between lakes and rock cliffs. You'll be tempted to get on it, but don't, especially if you're on a weekend. I had a huge ticket here not so many years ago. At the top of Boshkung Lake is Buttermilk Falls, which makes me think of the Waffle House, which in turn makes me think of maple syrup. And wouldn't you know it, I'd Tap That Maple Syrup, that's the name of the company, is right on our way. Now cross over Cushog Lake, spring through the metropolis of Pine Springs, drift past the Haliburton Highlands Trails office and enter Dorset. And if you're riding or driving between the hours of 11 to 7 on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, you'll want to consider the excellent thin crust pizza at Pizza on Earth, which is a riff on Peace on Earth, although I think they're trying just a little too hard. But the pizza's good enough that all is forgiven. This region of Ontario is excellent for doing what I think of as foundational, seminal Canadian things. Swatting blackflies in season is certainly part of the legacy, as is canoeing. Now, not enough people go canoeing. Back to Jake for a second. We were standing together once on a suspension bridge. Don't remember exactly where it was, but we were looking down into a river running through a rock cut. Cliffs on either side. It was stunning. And I said to Jake that I'd love to be in a canoe at this very moment. And Jake's response? I want a jet boat, honestly. Before you head to the Dorset Tower, check out Dorset's public washrooms. I love public washrooms, and not because I'm a weirdo, but because I feel mildly guilty when using the facilities at Tim Hortons when I never, ever, except in an emergency, drink their coffee. I've already talked about the Dorset Tower, so no need to beat that to death, except you should really do it. And if you're iffy on heights, just go up, 4 or 5 steps. The ground's right there. You'll be fine. You know what? Maybe it's time to confront the things that hold you back. This segment is brought to you by Best Western Hotels and Resorts. Welcome back to El Camino. Now it's time to leave the Haliburton region. Now, tourism folks, don't panic. We'll be right back. It's only temporary. North of Dorset is Dwight, a charming fork in the road, and then fork to the right, and you're on Highway 60, which meanders through the southern reaches of Algonquin Park. It's where Pierre Trudeau would go canoeing to ponder world events. Ditto for Gordon Lightfoot. Algonquin is wild. How wild? There's no Wi-Fi, which means you're on your own, left to your own resources. It's an idea hard to fathom in the year 2025. On the eastern side of Algonquin Park, take Road 127 south to Maynooth, then west on Peterson Road, which turns into Elephant Lake Road. Then take 648 past Dark Lake to Wilberforce. Elephant Lake Road is a gem, a classic in the region, and Wilberforce brings back memories. As a teen, I went up there with friends and stayed at a house that belonged to somebody knew. Something you'd not ever do as an adult. But when you're young, you don't think it's at all unusual staying at a stranger's house. And wouldn't you know, there was a young woman about my age who lived at the house, and she was furiously beautiful. Milan runway ready. And we flirted. Oh God, did we flirt. All while she was gutting and cleaning a deer. Even up to her elbows in guck, she lost none of her allure. And then she took a break, and while handing me a beer with one hand, she rolled a cigarette with the other hand. Well, that was it. She was the one. Right up until the next one. After Wilberforce, it's back to Haliburton on the 118, another great road, especially the bit that hugs the shoreline of Loon Lake. And then back in town, it's time to check in with Briar, who's finally getting some riding now that the trails are passable. Let's say you've had it with the city and you're ready to move on to something new. And you don't want to just move to the country and live in some big, ugly house built with the equity you accrued from your years in the city. You don't want to wind down. You want to wind it up. But you want meaning from your work. I've got something for you. Fleming College, it used to be called Sir Sanford Fleming, in the village of Haliburton, has a program, one of the few in the country, for blacksmithing. Now that is meaningful work, way better than writing nonsense for a TV show like this. Blacksmithing ties you to the land, and it's physical, creative, and useful. And the heat from the fires will keep the chill away in winter and sweat you into a svelte physique for summer. What is not to love? This segment is brought to you by GP Bikes. Welcome back to El Camino. All right, back to motorcycling. How do you decide where to ride in this region? The area has a good website dedicated to riding. RideTheHighlands.ca has pre-planned routes, or you can mix and match. I grew up in the eastern side of the province and have a few favorites of my own. In fact, when I bump into people who viewed this show, our conversation tends to take one of two routes. Some ask for their money back, but most ask where I should ride. This is for you. Now, I mentioned Elephant Lake Road. That's a gem. Farther east, the roads around Calabogie are excellent. The sweepers on the 511 south of Calabogie are stunning, though a few years ago I had to drag a man's Electroglide out of the shrubbery when he overcooked a turn. And maybe the best road of them all is between Griffith and Calabogie. Depending on which chunk you're on, it's either the 508, the 71, or the 65. And there's fresh pavement on the Calabogie end of it. Traffic is mostly non-existent, and that's one of the challenges. It's easy to fall into a rhythm and round a bend and find a fishing boat on a trailer pottering along at 25 kilometers an hour. Now that gets your attention. But don't let me or anyone else dictate your route, at least not all of it. Find a few classics. The Highlands website has a top 10, and then just wing it. GPS is great. I have no recollection of how I ever got anywhere before it, but don't let it dictate every turn you make. Leave room for serendipity. Jake, that word was for you. I've traveled these roads for a lifetime. They feel like home. Now, more a home than the home I grew up in. This is wild country that attracts wild people. The kind that don't panic when the Wi-Fi signal fades. I worked for a summer east of Bancroft at a marina on Wesley McCoon Lake. It was at the end of a very long dead-end road. I was called back to work for a weekend in the fall to help with dragging all the boats out of the water. The owner's son, who was in his early 20s, rounded up his friends from down south, and they all rode in on motorcycles. Every kind of bike imaginable. Clattery two-stroke triples, Harley choppers, clean, fresh Hondas and Yamahas, and a bevel-drive Ducati 900 SS. In black and gold. The noise, the smell, the swearing, my mother would have fainted. All weekend we wrestled everything from aluminum fishing boats to 30-foot Chris Crafts out of the water using an old Ford tractor. I wanted to prove that I belonged, but at 14, I ran out of steam long before they did. They didn't sleep much at all, but at dawn on Sunday, they were back at it again. Finally, by noon, the work was done, and in groups of 2 and 3s, they tore off down the road as if Satan was snapping at their heels. And then everyone was gone, except the man who wasn't much more than a kid himself, who'd ridden in on the Ducati. The two of us sat at the end of the dock with that wonderful melancholic closed up for the season feel that settles over Marina when the cottagers have packed up and all gone back to the city for the winter. We talked bikes. He asked if I had a girlfriend, and I blushed. He smiled. He offered me a cigarette. I took it, although I'd never smoked, and I nearly died on the spot. My dignity was shot. He was gracious enough to break what had become a humiliating moment and said, "Come on, see me off." With a sense of occasion, he rolled the Ducati's engine over slowly on the Kickstarter to a precise point. I didn't understand it then, but I do now. He wanted one of those big pistons to go up and over the compression stroke and fire the engine to life. When it started, it shot a blast of exhaust up into my face. Stand behind a motorcycle or a temperamental horse at your own risk. The rider pulled away and was immediately on it. He, like all the lads, had one speed. In time, some of them would pay greatly for their aggression. But that was all in the future. It was so quiet and so still at the lake, I could hear the Ducati for a long, long time. The sound would disappear when he slowed, and then come back again strong when he accelerated. I stood in the middle of the road waiting for my ride back to town in the Marina's pickup. The hook had been set. One day, someday, somehow, I would own a bike that made me feel like that black and gold Ducati did. Thank you for watching El Camino. Clothing was provided by Importations Tebow. El Camino has been brought to you by Best Western Hotels and Resorts. Wherever life takes you, Best Western is there. Importations Tebow, distributor of power sports parts and accessories. And by Spring Toronto Motorcycle Super Show.